Okay, welcome to episode 30 of the Total Hockey Training Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Scahan. And before I introduce my next guest, just want to remind everyone the online program is rolling. We're just wrapping up the off-season program and we're gearing for the preseason program. So if you're an athlete, you're a hockey player, and you need a training program, I work with kids all around the world. So sign up. Okay, my next guest is Andrew Alberts. Andrew was born and raised in Minnesota. He played for the hockey program Benilde St. Margaret's. He had 2 years in the USHL with the Waterloo Blackhawks and then 4 years at Boston College. He was drafted by the Boston Bruins. Then he had an NHL career for approximately 10 seasons, playing for the Bruins, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Vancouver Canucks, retiring in 2013. Now he is the hockey development director of Sense Arena. Andrew, welcome to the show, pal. How are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to reunite after so many years, right? So thanks for having
Yeah,
me on.
yeah, absolutely. And I love doing these because most of the time it's I get to connect with people who I haven't seen in a while. I think the last time I saw you was, I think, playing for Van a few years back. So tell us about yourself, Andrew. Like, I know you're from Minneapolis. Talk about your youth and growing up in, we are you from Minneapolis, or are you from a suburb, or what?
Yeah, I grew up in Eden Prairie.
Okay.
So I was one of those lucky kids that ended up parents bought a house on a small kind of swampy lake, and so like as a young kid, I grew up watching my uncles. So I had three uncles on my mom's side who all played D1 hockey and captained their teams at Duluth, Minnesota Gophers, and down in Notre Dame. So I grew up watching my uncles play hockey, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
So playing in the basement, stick a puck in the basement, shooting around, stick handling around me. It was great to kind of live hockey through those guys as a young person, and then myself, growing up in Minnesota, Eden Prairie, it's all town hockey, right? Which I'm sure
Yeah.
you've heard before, and you live there now, so you understand it. Very different from anywhere else around the United States right now, but grew up in town hockey. Spent my afternoons in the lake behind my house with my buddies. That's the memories I take with me right from Minnesota. It's growing up playing hockey outside, but
Yeah.
I grew up playing B hockey. Never the best on my team. Never played top level, and then got into the high school stuff in a very different way. And I can go into that right now if you want, or if you have other questions about
Yeah,
it.
no, I do. I'd love to hear that because I recently had on PJ Atherton, and he was talking about the same process. I think in Edina, and he was a B-level player all through Bantams.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, please get into that. Like, I know the point is that a lot of the kids are, I guess, anointed, especially in Minnesota, double A Pee Wee, double A Bantams, but there are the guys who stick it out and grind it out and make it. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So as I mentioned, I was never the best person on my team. Never played on the top teams really. I was more of a mediocre type guy, and I was a late bloomer. So as I was going through Bantams and playing Bantam Bs, and then moving into high school to try out for high school and varsity, I was still only 5'8", 160 pounds. So hadn't hit my growth spurt yet. Where all my other buddies, I'm looking around, looking up at all of them because they had
Yeah.
already started growing. And so the story goes is as a kid, you watch the high school team growing up, right? It's not, the NHL was there till I was 10 with the North Stars. And then that's like the Gophers are the big thing in town. But really, it's kids. They want to play for that high school team. They want to get to that state tournament in St. Paul, right?
Mm-hmm.
And play in the big state tournament that you see on TV with the guys and the flow and everything. And like
Mm-hmm.
that's the dream as a young kid in Minnesota. And so I grew up going to Eden Prairie high school hockey games, and that's where I want to play. So, after Bantams, you got to try out for high school, and so on the first day, they usually bring out everybody for the varsity tryout, and you're going through reps and whatnot. And after day one, they're like, "Hey, Andrew, we're breaking the group into two. The varsity squad and some potential players are going to go there, and the next group's going to be on their sheet ice for JV. Go to the next few days of JV tryout." and then they make cuts. And so I was hoping to make the team, obviously, and I knew my buddies were going to make the team. But when my meeting came, I got into the office and they sat me down and just said, "Hey, Andrew, thanks for coming out, but your high school career is over. You're never going to play high school hockey. So
Now,
thanks for coming out."
but let me intercept here real quick. Was this at Eden Prairie High School or Benilde?
No, this is at Eden Prairie. So this is Lee
Okay,
Smith,
all right.
Dick Emaheiser, which are my favorite people ever now, right? For telling me I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
But devastating at the time, as you can imagine. 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, looking to make a high school team or JV team, if you will, to prolong his career. And so when I got that news, it was pretty devastating to me. Luckily, I was like, hey, you know what? I still want to play. I still have passion to play. I want to play. I think I'm a decent player. I'll try out for the midget A team. Go to midget A tryouts. It's just a one-day tryout. They decide they want to keep all the seniors and juniors on a team, the older guys, so that they can play together.
what's midget A real quick? Is that
So midget
what the
A,
junior goals?
so you hear a lot of like midget AAA. That's a
Yeah.
AAA program around the nation. So midget A is a very low level of midgets, the lowest level of midgets, more or
Okay.
less. And so, below high school hockey, obviously, but above house hockey, if you will.
Got it. Okay.
So I understood that. They're like, hey, go try out for the junior gold team, which is a step below that. So I'm like, all right, play junior gold. I'll know a couple guys that are still down there. I'll get to play with a couple neighbors maybe that are in the neighborhood that I don't get to play with because they're older and I never had the chance. Try out for junior gold. And they say, nah, sorry, you can't cut it, kid. So I'm like, all right. So I didn't have anywhere else to try out for. And so they dropped me all the way down to the house team. And they made a house team. And this is kids that had never played travel hockey, the kids that just show up for smiles and hang out with their buddies. And this was like eye-opening to me because I'm like, well, here I am, and I put my best foot forward, and I can't do better than house hockey. And so for me, is obviously devastating to my career, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make the most of it. I'm gonna have a good time. I still love playing hockey. I know I lost my goal of making it to high school and to college, but hey, let's make the most of this. And so I had a good season with my buddies. No pressure from my coaches, no pressure from your parents, no pressure from any outside influence. So I had a great time playing hockey. And then that next summer, for academic reasons, I decided to transfer to Benilde St. Margaret's. So fast forward to that fall, captain's practices, skating with just the guys, no coaches. The coaches could watch obviously from the stands. And we won in tryouts, and I was like, yeah, I'll try out, see what happens. Private school, smaller number of kids trying out, it might have a better chance. So I go through tryouts and go sit in the meeting, and it's Jack Blatherwick is there. And for those who don't know Jack Blatherwick, he is world renowned in the overspeed and off ice training, which Sean, I'm sure you could touch on even more than me.
Yeah.
Methods. Worked with the 80 Olympic teams, 92 Olympic teams. Worked at Calgary Rangers, Washington for a number of years. So well respected. And he's not a guy that likes the limelight. So he came back to high school hockey to coach, and he was my assistant coach. And so we're at the meeting with him and the head coach, Ken Paul, and they said, hey, we'd love you to play varsity. And I was like literally floored. like looking around, they're not talking to somebody else, right? and they said, Jack's like, listen, kid, you can't skate worth the lick. You're the worst skater I've ever seen. But I know you can think the game. And so I can change the skating as long as you keep thinking the game, and we'll make this work. And so that's how I got into hockey at Benilde St. Margaret's. And from that day forward, I literally did whatever Jack Blather could say.
Wow.
He's like, hey, come on in. We're going to work on your strength, your one-legged strength, your two-legged strength. We're going to gain some weight, going to put some muscle on. I know you're going to grow. And I worked out with him 5-6 days a week for the next 4 or 5 years. And then trained with him underneath my whole pro career. So I owe a ton to Jack. He saw the potential in me when nobody else did. He kind of gave me that seed of belief, if you will, that allowed to grow and cultivate through me, and that gave me self-belief that I could keep pushing. And I know he'd work with enough NHL players that he knows what he's doing, and so I just put all my eggs in his basket and just followed whatever he said.
I love that, and yeah, I'm a big fan of Jack. He's still around the rinks a lot, and he he does this for nonprofit still. He still trains guys out of Spring Lake Park. No, not Spring Lake Park.
He's a
St.
great
Louis
idea.
Park. St. Louis Park, and he has a facility there at New Hope Arena. I
Hmm.
went and visited with him when I first came here, and I've always collaborated with him. And he's a unique individual. I had Josh Levine on this show a couple
Yeah.
episodes ago, and he speaks very, very highly of Jack. And yeah, I mean, he's still doing it. And he was ahead of his time, still is. And he was training hockey players like track sprinters, trying to increase explosive power and doing a hell of a job. And that's great you mentioned him. And I think it's great that you respectful to him for helping you. I think that goes a long way as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, where I was at, Sean, it was I had nowhere else to turn, and like my parents, my dad didn't play a lick of hockey, so he didn't have he had the influence. He was an athlete, played
Mm-hmm.
basketball, baseball, golf, and like
Mm-hmm.
helped me instill that drive and that compete to want to play and want to be better. And my mom was a good athlete, and she grew up around hockey,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't know the ins and outs of it. So I never had that pressure from my parents to be at the rink every day or working out every day or whatever it might be. They would encourage me and always support me whatever I was doing, but I never had that kind of outside pressure from my parents, forcing me to want to create that passion as opposed to me developing that passion as a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of, the difference to a lot of kids nowadays is it's almost the parents trying to cultivate that passion in them so that they do want to play and do achieve and ascend to higher
Yeah.
levels. So that's a big part of it. But just to go back to Jack, his outside of the box thinking and training. Um, I ended up being 6'3", buck 70 by the end of my junior year, and a giraffe on skates more or less. And I just spent hours and hours in the weight room with him telling me what to do. And he's like, just do what I say, and I'll put you in the NHL. So he means the world to me. Great guy. Still keep in touch. Always we talk about hockey and games and players, and he's just got a completely different way of thinking about the game,
He
which
does.
it's really refreshing to hear.
No, that's awesome. Now, did you hit a growth spurt before you went to Benilde, or
Yeah,
you,
so it's kind of that summer where I had started growing. So I got to be like 6'2", and then 6'1", 6'2". So I kind of shot up quick. And then by the end of my junior year, I was like 6'3", and then continued growing as I went into juniors, eventually
awesome?
topping out about 6'4.5".
Awesome. Now, did you play any other sports? Because I remember you were a pretty explosive athlete. You had a pretty high vertical jump. Did you play any other sports growing up? Did you? It wasn't just hockey for you, was it?
No, so it was yeah, I mean, yeah, so we put the hockey sticks away, probably right after the season, kind of Marchish, right? And then I was a
Mm-hmm.
big baseball guy. I love playing baseball and golf. But then we'd be playing tennis in the yard or whatever it was in the neighborhood was going on. A lot of street hockey, a lot of roller hockey, knee hockey, just stuff to stay active, flag football. So I was always doing something else, kind of following the seasons, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it was never hockey 24/7 till you're probably till probably my junior year in high school. It just wasn't. That's just not what it was back then, 20 years ago. So, geez, 25 now.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's
but no,
crazy.
I think doing all those other sports with the hand-eye coordination, the explosiveness, and the agility and whatnot, like that's what made me a better athlete as a whole and better on the ice.
And that is not taking place today, which is really sad because there are these guys who are probably like you who may not get to see their long-term development because they're not participating in other sports, they're not learning other skills, they're just focusing on one sport. And that's sad. It's 365 days a year now for one sport, and we can get into all that, but it's just yeah, the way you did it, it still works. And not like you had the intent on, you know,
Mhm. Sure.
making the NHL, but it's just yeah, this things are messed up today, and I really
No,
believe that.
you're spot on, and it's weird because you hear different people say, like I think Matt Cullen's a big believer in,
Yeah.
single sport athletes at the age by 10 or 12, to get them to where they want to go. It's just like, I think it kind of depends what your goal is. Like,
Hmm.
what's your goal for your kid? For my kid to be happy, have some sex, or have success, have success, um, and, and be part of a team sport where you're learning about problem solving and
Yeah,
selflessness, and learning how to compete and be a teammate and a good person that'll carry you into other things in life. And
absolutely.
that's the great thing about sports and hockey in general. So,
And being a good teammate, I think is important, right? It's
absolutely.
so talk about, after Benilde, you went and played 2 years in the USHL with Waterloo, right?
Yeah, so I had to try out two separate times to make the water. So after high school, I didn't really talk to anybody, and I had applied to St. Thomas, where they didn't have a hockey team at this point. That's a local school in Minnesota, and
Yeah.
I had got admitted, or I got accepted, and so I was thinking about going to St. Thomas, and then Waterloo Blackhawks called and said, "Hey, would you like to come down and try out?" And I'm like, "I don't need to rush into school, play a little more hockey." Went down there, tried out, had a pretty good camp. They asked me to come back again in August. Came back, another good camp. And so they signed me to the team, and I was on the team to begin the season. Didn't play a game until after Thanksgiving, so I was the shot chart guy up in the stands at every game. I was like this close to quitting hockey. I really was.
Wow.
I couldn't stand the coach. It was 2 days, 4 hours on the ice for the first 2 3 weeks. Just old school thinking, right? Try to drive
Yeah.
guys to the ground, see who wants to quit first, and then we'll get rid of them. And then the coach got released, and we brought in a new coach, and he actually gave me a chance. And so the season kind of turned around from there. The leash got longer. Had a good end of the season. Had a really good summer with Jack working out, and then came in and played great in the preseason, the first couple games, and earned a spot on a tournament team between the four junior leagues. So it was American West back then when it was there, USHL, North American Hockey League, and an at-large team. So I was on the USHL team. First two games had 2 goals. The first game, a goal the next game, which I'm not a scorer, but ended up working great. BC saw me play. I said, "Hey, we'd love to send Jerry out the next week. Jerry York to come see me play in Omaha." Jerry flew out. We got spanked by Omaha 5-0, but I played all right. And Jerry said, "You want to come to BC?" And that was kind of
Oh,
how it all got
man.
going.
Now, were there other schools knocking on your door, or is it?
No, so I had those two. Out of the 3 games, I had 2 goals first game, a goal the second game, an assist and some big hits, some great breakout passes, disrupting plays. Played great the tournament. Had tournament of my life, and still BC was really the only school that talked to me. Oddly
Oh,
enough,
wow.
and they had won. They'd gone to win the national championship that year.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but I'd wanted to be a gopher, a golden gopher. I grew up watching the Ghosts. My uncle played for the Ghosts. I wanted to be a gopher. And so I had my family advisor that I was working with reach out to the Gophers and say, "Hey, do they have any interest in me to come and play at the Ghosts?" And they're like, we'll give the guy 1 year scholarship, but he's got to cover the rest. And I'm like, you know what? As much as I'd love to go there, I want to go somewhere where somebody really wants me.
Really want to, yeah.
And I had a buddy, Joe Schumann, who I played at the Benilde the year prior or 2 years prior, was at
Oh, yeah, I
BC.
remember Joe. Yeah,
And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go join Joe at BC. My other good friend from Benilde was there as a junior, and so it was kind of an easy decision for me. Absolutely.
that's awesome. Then talk about your 4 years at BC.
Uh, well, very different 4 years. So you came in same year I did, I believe, right? We
Freshman,
both
yeah,
came in. Yeah.
freshman year.
And so you had our freshman class, and they had just won the national championship.
Yes.
And so I want to say they lost 8 to 9 seniors. Orpik went
Studs.
pro. Yeah. Orpik went pro early. Kalanos went pro early. So they lost some
Bobasu.
names. Kobasu left early. So they won the national championship. Senior class graduated. Those guys went pro. And so they had some extra slots. And so we're a team, a rebuilding team. We had
Yeah.
2 seniors, 4 juniors. The big sophomore class of 8 or 9 with Ben Eves,
Tony.
Tony Bose, there you
Yeah.
go, Jama, Brett Peterson, GM
Chubbs,
down in
yep.
Florida, Chubsy. And then our class came in with 11. And so it was a great opportunity. Sorry, BC hockey, but we're in rebuilding now. But what a better spot to end up as a young player trying to crack a lineup and get some playing time because the spots were open and it was up for
Yeah.
grabs. And so it was great for me to be a part of that. But the best thing about that year, besides training with you, was we had two really good captains. If you remember Les Dolinar and Giuliano
Alesh, Jules.
Giuliano,
Yeah,
like two of the hardest working guys I've ever met in the hockey world,
absolutely.
right? And
Jules.
so
Yeah.
I idolize them. Like I want to be like them, right? And so they set the tone, and it wasn't like they were there because of their skill. It was because of their character and their grit and how hard they worked and the leadership they showed. And that's kind of encompasses what BC hockey is. It's like, yeah, they're a good, even nowadays, every year they're a good skill team, but I think they really they bring in guys with good character and guys that
Hmm.
work hard and lead by example, so good leaders. And so those are the guys that I was lucky enough to have as a freshman that kind of showed us the ropes and paved the path for us to ascend the next couple of years and hard work, what we're going to do, how we act on the ice, off the ice as professionals, and then obviously Jerry was there with the great assistants, kind of keeping the car on the road, if you will, if we got out of line. But
Hmm.
yeah, that was the other good thing. Like Jerry was there to hands off. He's going to treat you like a pro until you showed him that you couldn't be one. So that was the other thing I remember is that he wants you to grow as not just a hockey player, but as a human being and a gentleman off the ice. So
Hmm.
it was an eye-opening experience, but uh, very much a growing year for me for that first year.
Good. And what I'll just briefly say about Jerry ran that program like a pro hockey team,
Mm.
and everything was done, the way a NHL team would do it. Because I went and worked in the NHL after that, and he would bring in GMs if teams were coming in to play the Boston Bruins. He'd have the GM come by and talk to you guys. He would have you guys read a book, and then he'd have you guys talk about the book. I think one of them was the Perfect Present. I remember him having like a book club about that. And yeah, Jerry was a lot of fun to be around, and he did a great job at that program, helping build it to what it is today, actually. So when did you get drafted by Boston then? Would you have been 18 years old before you went to BC?
So I was 19 when I was 21 at BC, and so the year I could get drafted at 18, I didn't get drafted, so everybody passed on me, which is great because
Yeah.
then you're like, I could be a free agent, but you get drafted the next year. So the next year I got drafted in the sixth round by the Bruins, and so it was cool to know that I was going to BC. The Bruins had drafted me. I knew they'd be watching. I don't know if they would talk to me or not, but I knew they'd be watching. And so beyond the incentive of wanting to play in show that you earn your scholarship and make to the next level, like it was great to know like that pressure that the Bruins scouts would probably be in the stands many of those days. And so
Hmm.
it was easy to get up for games, practice, that sort of thing.
And you played all 4 years at BC. That's I guess that's a rarity nowadays. Like now you get kids getting drafted higher, or even drafted at all, and they sign after their sophomore or junior year, sometimes freshman year. And was there an opportunity for you to sign with Boston before you graduated?
So if you remember, the 0405 was that lockout year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no NHL, would have been my senior year. So after my junior year, so my freshman year, it was acclimating to the league, out east, getting used to it, was okay. My second year was more of that stepstone year, where all right, well now I'm the power play. Now I'm playing top minutes with JD
Mm-hmm.
Force, that sort of thing. And then my junior year was really my coming out year and kind of point production, minutes, everything else. And so I finished the year All American, felt pretty good about myself. But I still it is, the NHL is dangling there, right? Because you hear
Mm-hmm.
rumors and your agents talking to people and whatnot. But I knew the NHL wasn't going to be there, right? Because they're in the lockout. And so I knew the AHL was going to be a big league with a lot of young guys coming down to play.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought, you know what? I'm this close to my degree, another year of development because I was a late bloomer, anyways, remember? And I
Yeah.
came in very raw my freshman year. And so I was like, I'll take one more year at BC. And then, whenever that season's over, I can go play in the HL playoffs or whatever it might be. And so I went that extra year. So it wasn't a big decision for me. I was actually kind of ready to go back and kind
Mm-hmm.
of finish my career. And I want to win a national title as well. So because we lost in the finals or in the semifinals to Maine that year in the Frozen
Mm-hmm.
Four, so kind of unfinished business.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
yeah,
You
but
still
the
had that
game's
long
changed a little bit.
term. Yeah, it has changed. But you always had that long term approach, Like I think nowadays, um, because the salary cap wasn't around then. And nowadays you want to get these guys on their entry level deals on the cheap, to be honest with you, so they can sign the bigger fish, right?
Yeah.
And no, that's awesome. And so you started with Providence, I imagine, and then played how many years in Boston?
So I was in Boston for so I went down after we lost. I went to the AHL that lockout year, and played the last 10 with Providence, and then we went on a run in the playoffs. Lost in the finals to the Phantoms, Philly Phantoms, who ended up winning. Actually, Tony Bost
Yeah.
on that team.
Yes.
Um,
Great team. They had Brad Richards and
oh, they were
yeah,
just stacked.
yes, I remember
Sharpie,
that year.
Richards, Carter,
Jeff Carter,
Nitamaki was in that. They had a ton of guys. Fedoruk was down there.
Fridge, yeah.
John Sim. So real good team. And then that next year, I made the team out of camp, which is a little bit wasn't expecting that, but every day I get to go back to my hotel room, after a skate, whatever it was, and I just kept going back, not saying a
This is
word.
Boston.
This is Boston, yeah, first
Wow.
training camp. I just went
Wow.
in and said, and my attitude was, I talked to a veteran at my agent's camp prior to going out there, and he said, I wish I remember his name. He's like, Albie, just he called me actually Big Rig back then. Big Rig, forget about the noise. Like, forget about the noise. Don't worry what locker room in. Don't know what people are saying. Don't care. Don't even listen to it. Just focus on what you're doing. And I'll never forget this. He goes, just take the attitude of fuck everybody. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your spot is in that room, and you got to earn that spot. And fuck everybody. Just do what you have to do to make that team. And that's
Wow.
literally. I stepped on the ice, and I'm a pretty easygoing guy, laid back guy. But when you're on the ice, like, you put a new face on and you go to work.
Yeah.
And it's either that guy or me making the team. And so it
Yeah.
was going to be me at that point. And that's just kind of the attitude I took moving into the NHL.
Awesome. And you never saw the American Hockey League again?
No, I did for a little bit. So Joe Thornton got traded in the first
Yep.
2 months I was there. And then they brought in Sturmy and Primo and Brad Stewart. And so I got sent down for a week, and then I was back up for the rest of my
Okay.
career.
Wow. Good for you. And then traded to Philadelphia after a year. How many years in Boston again? I
Yeah,
know
after
I just
3 years,
okay.
I had a big concussion. My third year, I was out like 40 games.
Okay.
That summer, I wasn't really healthy. Came back to camp, wasn't doing well, and they still traded me. It was back in the
Yeah.
day when they didn't care that much about concussions and how you're feeling and
Yeah, I mean,
physicals and whatnot.
yeah, it's a tough spot. I've dealt with a few guys who sustained that injury, and all I can say is what I remember is you feel lonely, you feel
Yeah.
like you're not part of the team, and the guys who care about you are always asking you how you're feeling. And so you end up getting confused every day a little bit, right? You kind of feel like you're on an island, not part of the team, and everyone's asking you how you're doing. And it's a tough spot because the clearing protocol, you're not allowed to do anything, right?
Well, and
You
it's
gotta,
hard because internally though too, like you feel like I need to get back to help out, right?
yeah.
Like you want like that's like I need to play, like I need to get back, and so you're always in your head like screwing yourself by thinking you're feeling good sometimes, and you
Mm-hmm.
want to get back and play, and then you go do something and you set yourself back. So it's a really it's a hard place to be in. I mean, you
Yeah.
said it pretty good there. It's just hard
Yeah.
to get back to where you want to go, and you want to go. Your body wants to go, but your mind just won't be sometimes.
Yeah. No, that's tough. And so then it was Philadelphia, not too long in Philly, right?
Yeah, I played in Philly for a year. Was about to re-sign, and they traded for Pronger, and that's a
Okay.
much better player to put in your lineup than me. So I agreed with the move. So I signed in Carolina that year on a 2-year deal. We played. We weren't very good that year, and then I got traded to Van at the deadline, and I finished up in Van for 5 years with
That's right.
great bunch of guys out there, some great teams, a couple President's Cup or President Trophy winners, run to the finals, lost to the Bees here in Game 7.
Yeah.
So, hell of a journey. I mean, you've taken it all the way, obviously, and you won that last game of the year. I lost it. Still hurts, but you try to get some positives about it, and the experience you went through and the journey with your teammates and the coaches and the sacrifices the family has made and everybody.
100%.
It's pretty special to say that you got that far and went through that, and take a lot of positives from it, even though we lost.
Yeah, that's not a lot of people get that far, and that was a great team. You had Kess, Luongo was in the net, right?
Yeah,
And
Juice was there, the
Juice,
twins,
yeah,
Burrows. We had a lot of good players. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So that's a hell of a run. It's a hell of a run for a kid that got cut from his first high school opportunity, and like I don't. People need to see that and be like, wow, like that's just because you're not on the AA Bantam team doesn't mean you can't make it. And there's a lot of work ahead of you, and you just don't give up, right? And
Yeah.
that's
I think it's
pretty
that, and
remarkable.
a lot of the kids think and they see, and don't get me wrong, I love watching the stars. I love the Matthews. I love the Bedards. I love the
Yeah.
Kane. But there's also bottoms of the lineup,
Mm-hmm.
bottom 6 guys, or the bottom 40 or bottom 2D, whatever it is. Like, those guys have a huge impact on every single game that's played in the NHL. And a lot of times they're not the most skilled players, but they might be the best competing players. They're going to come out of the corner with the puck.
Mm-hmm.
The character players, role players. Like, so if you're a young kid and you're not putting the puck in the net, there's still a million things that you could do great on the ice. And I guarantee you, any coach or scout watching, like, if you're competing your ass off and you're beating guys with pucks and you're coming out of the corner pucks and you're winning your puck battles, that's going to mean a lot more to me if I was watching than just some guy that's dipsy doodling going down, putting the puck in the net, not back checking or playing D. So,
Oh, 100%.
That's what young kids, I
Yeah.
think they just get so focused on that offense, but there's other parts of the game. You have to be a 180-foot or 200-foot player nowadays.
Well, especially someone like you are a playoff defenseman, and you win with guys like you in the playoffs, and that's what it's all about. There's roles for all types of players, and it's crazy because a lot of these young kids who might be putting up points left and right, like they might be a fourth liner if they make the NHL, and they have to change their game at some point. A lot of these fourth liners in the National League might have been 50 goal scorers at one time. And you do have to kind of figure that out if you want to make it, because you're not, like you said, Austin Matthews, you're not Kirill Kaprizov. So you have to find your niche and your role and be really good at it. And yeah, like those bottom pair defensemen, like Florida's not winning that cup with some of the guys that now you're hearing about, or think about St. Louis back then. You had, Scandella, you had Edmondson, all those guys. There's so many, I guess, opportunities for players to find their roles and be a good teammate and take it as far as you can.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's kind of my message with young kids is one, like you said, we talk about believing in yourself, and never giving up, and having that if you're out working the guy across from you, everybody in the rink's going to notice, right? If you're out competing everybody's going to notice. And I'll take 10 of those kids on my team instead of 10 guys that are just offensive guys that want to just put the puck in the net and not play that 200-foot game. So when I'm looking at guys, remember like when those GMs would come into BC, I remember I think Lou Lamoriello came in and he put up 2 bars on the whiteboard, and one was like the big one was character and compete, and the small one was skill. And I think he just asked the question like, "Hey guys, which one do you think GMs are looking at?" You know,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was just like, there it is on the board, guys. We love skilled players. Teams need them. Don't get me wrong, but most of the teams going to be made up of guys that have character and compete and want to come out of the corner with the puck. Like those type of guys, they're going to do anything for their teammates. That's what teams are made up of. Successful teams.
I love that. And did you ever see his analogy where he talks about teams being like an orchestra,
No.
where It's pretty cool. I saw it recently. I think it was a clip on one of the defensemen that played for the Devils back in the day. He wanted more power play time, and he went into Lou's office and talked. Lou said, "Hey, every team is like an orchestra. You have your piano player, you have your flute player, you have your harp player, you have your tuba player. You know what you're good at and bring that to the team." It was
Yeah.
Ken Danico,
Okay. Yeah.
and that I thought that was pretty. I've heard that before. Brian Burke borrowed it from Lou and said it to the Anaheim team back then. But I think that's a great analogy. And yeah, character and work ethic trump everything else. So it's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, your Ducks teams, I think you could probably point out each guy his role and they
Yeah,
knew it to a T. And that's
absolutely.
how you had success. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're spot on or Lou's spot on. So great
Yeah, no
analogy.
question. That's so good. That's really good stuff. So talk about post playing career. I know talk about Sense Arena and what you're doing now and what you're bringing to the hockey community. Tell us
Sure.
about that, buddy.
So I retired because of concussion. So I had took a few years there trying to get healthy, still dealing with some stuff, but that took up a lot of my time. Moved out to Boston here, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
I did a little bit of TV work at the Bruins, some analysis stuff, and then moved into working for Sense Arena. I'm director of the development now. So I oversee. So actually, just I'll give you a quick overview of Sense Arena. It's more or less a hockey simulation device for players and goaltenders, and we have a strictly cognitive platform. And what we can do is we can provide game-like reps as well as other training drills. They're going to focus on your cognitive skills, your read and react, your use of peripheral vision. We can track metrics of your release time, but more or less it's about getting puck touches. So players getting puck touches, getting extra reps, getting game reps. So you only get so many in a practice. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now you can do it in your house or in your garage, wherever it might be. You have thousands of reps over and over and over. So you're getting different looks, different. You're making different reads, different scans, different pre-scans to see what you're doing with the puck. So that's kind of the player version. The goalie version, it's about reading the release. Soft scanning, reading players, anticipating plays, and then reading the release of different shots. So very cool tool. We've got 5 NHL teams using it right now. I think like 16 NCAA teams, tons of communities around the world, and individuals as well. It's become an at-home device. B2C. Our B2C market's kind of our biggest thing. And so it's just players that want to get more reps, and not have to pay the extra ice and the coach on the ice to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's awesome. And where can people find out more about that?
just go to nhlsensorina.com and
All right.
that'll kind of give you an overview of what we are, and click on the links, check it out. And yeah, it's pretty unique.
That's pretty cool.
Kind of on the
That
cutting
is
edge of technology. Yeah.
that's awesome. And you like doing that, obviously. And this is
I love it because it's one, it's got me back into the hockey kind of community, and two, I get to create drills that help in the development of young players, right? So many kids are great skaters, great stick handlers, and they can skate like the wind.
mm-hmm.
But can they make a read? Can they evaluate time and space? Can they pre-scan with their head up to identify where the immediate conflict is, where their teammates are they counting numbers? Can they do all these things to make a great play?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm glad that I can create something like that, where players and coaches can go in to help young players kind of develop these tools, these cognitive tools. So many scouts I talk to and buddies that are in the game, I say, like, some of these kids are they're just rocks out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can skate, they can stick handle, but they can't think the game. So if we can get extra reps and help build that hockey IQ, I think it's a great spot to be in.
That's awesome, man. Well, that is really cool. I'm happy to hear that. And it was great connecting with you. So promise me next year, though, this coming season, you're going to come to a BC game and we're going to watch a kid who reminds me a lot of you when you were younger playing for BC. So, that's going to be pretty cool.
I will be there. I will check. I'm excited to check him out.
Awesome. Awesome. And yeah, man, this has been great reconnecting with you. Always been a big fan. Just a great guy in the weight room, and it's awesome to hear your story. And I hope this can resonate with a lot of kids because this still happens, and it's really cool. You've had a great career. Not a lot of players make it to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final and play 10 years in the league. And just congrats on your success, and I'm glad to hear things are going well, bud.
No, thanks. I appreciate the platform, and hopefully, like you said, the message resonates with some young kids. You know, never give up. Just keep playing. If you got a passion, keep going for it.
I love
So,
it.
great
All right,
connecting with
man.
you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great connecting with you, and I'll hope to see you next season.
Awesome, buddy.
Take care, Andrew. Thanks for your time.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.